All right, folks, let's get right into it. A few days have passed since this completely unprovoked attack took place on Israel by a few proxies of Iran. Actually, I think very specifically one proxy of Iran, the Houthis. And I want to simply make a statement about this. We've been talking about this for quite some time. We have said that this was going to tell us a lot about the geopolitical shifting that's taking place in the Middle East. When this attack took place, it was very unique for several reasons. Number one, you've got to understand that the sort of maritime war that was going on between Iran and Israel was something that was very covert in nature. Matter of fact, oftentimes there were a lot of attempted attacks being made that were foiled by Israel because of their brilliance in being able to understand the things that are going on around them, their intelligence, all of that kind of stuff. There's some pretty amazing things that they've done to be able to foil these types of attacks. But in this particular case, it was really unique. And the reason why it was unique is because a couple of drones were used. And in those drones being used, what they did was they flew directly into the actual oil tanker. Now, the thing that's unique about that is most of these drones are not designed to do that. These were sort of a kamikaze kind of attack that took place. Now, we know that the ones that are building drones like that are the Houthis. And of course, these are the people that are being used as proxies by Iran to attack Israel and many other things. They're also attacking Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of things going on. There's some really very interesting implications with respect to Yemen and some of the other areas in the region, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. And it's making Iran become a bigger player than a lot of people actually think. Now, the reason why this is so significant is because if we know that the Houthis did this at the request of Iran, which we know that that was the case, then we also have to understand that why they did this was also very unique. Now, before I get into that, let me just simply say this. We can thank the United States of America for this to a degree because the Biden administration chose to undesignate the Houthis as a terrorist organization when they came in. I think it was an act of anti-Semitism. I think it was a direct slap in the face of the Jewish state. But, I've talked about that a lot. The implications, geopolitically speaking, of what they did was actually significant because it emboldened Iran to continue doing the things that they have been sort of escalating in doing against Iran. Now, this is a much more significant problem than a lot of people think because Iran is attacking Israel and taking responsibility for doing it without really taking responsibility for really doing it. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people that just heard it because it almost was like I sort of canceled out myself in saying that. But let me explain what I mean when I say that. First of all, because it's a proxy that does this, it always leaves the question of how significant and how much intent was involved in what Iran did. When you remove that, then you get the international community involved and they begin to condemn the attacks without really doing anything to show their disapproval of the attacks. So you'll see statements. Bennett just made one, or not Bennett, I'm so sorry. Antony Blinken just made one. And a few others have been making statements that condemn these attacks. Of course, yes, Bennett really did make some statements condemning these attacks, but he wants a different result. And what's even more interesting about this is as these statements are being made, I promise you for a fact, there is no desire to really act on it. It's not like one nation is going to go attack another nation. And if one nation does attack another nation, it'll be Israel. And when Israel does that, they're going to be condemned by the international community. They're already being condemned by the United Nothing, right? So this is manipulation. This is Iran at its finest, choosing to do what they want to do without experiencing the consequences that they know they could experience if a stronger administration were at play, both on the Israeli government side and on the United States government side. And this becomes even more significant to us because I can promise you that the United States is going to continue on with the JCPOA. They're going to let that happen. And the more and more we allow this nonsense to take place, the more we are going to see Iran be empowered. Now, why is that such a big deal? It's a big deal because Jesus is coming soon. Folks, we are watching the ground being laid for what we know is going to happen in Ezekiel chapter 38. Israel is running towards the globalism world, We can see that. We can see that the international community is getting more involved and continuing to condemn Israel, and yet Israel seems to be embracing them, and I don't understand that. That's a Bennett government thing. I don't get it. I'm just shocked by it all. But I know that the Bible said something like this would happen. So we are watching the forming of all of this. We need to open up our eyes because the Lord is coming for his church. He's going to rapture the church soon, because what we're seeing is a lot of preparation, geopolitical shifting and everything for what we know is going to happen in the tribulation. That tells me Jesus is coming for his church sooner than we think. And we need to wake up, because before we know it, the trump will sound, and we know that the dead in Christ will rise, and then we'll be taken up. We'll be snatched away by the Lord. It's going to be glorious, guys, but it's around the corner. Wake up, fight the good fight. Don't give up. Continue to stand for righteousness, because our Maker is coming for us, and we want to be found doing his work. God bless you.